To get started, take out your board, some solder, some wire, and have your soldering iron ready. You're also going to want a pair of wire strippers and a pair of nippy cutters. This is the side of the circuit we're going to pop our components in. This is the side we're going to solder to. But we're going to start just with this part of the board to practice. So we're just going to focus on using solder, soldering iron, practicing here. And it's going to look something like this when you're done. So you'll have these small ones and these ones and some wires coming up. And you should have read in the solder practice kit pamphlet, this is where we're going to be. This is page 6. So we're going to basically follow along. That's what I'm going to demo now. All right, so the first thing I want to do is make sure that my soldering iron tip is ready to go. And I'm just going to put some solder right on the end. And then clean it off. You can see the tip of my iron is tinned and ready to go. So now it's time to practice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with these pads, and I'm just going to put my soldering iron tip down, make sure that I've got some solder fed out of here, and I'm going to try my best to just hold the solder here rather than holding it down here for safety. So I'm heating up the pad, and then I'm going to let it flow. I'm going to do that again. And so that might happen. If that happens, you just need to kind of wait till it flows, maybe add a little more, and there you go. So that one is that third one I just did. You can see is better than the second one. The second one has a little too much solder on it. The first one doesn't really have enough. And now I'm gonna clean off the tip because you can see it's not shiny anymore. There we go. Now it's shiny again. Pull a little more solder out. And I'm just gonna keep going down. And that's really all there is to it. You can practice bridging these two together. So now those two, you can see these are now, there's solder flowing between those two. These would be connected either way because they're one piece of copper. So this is just kind of to practice getting those. You can just have solder flow one to the other. These ones, these are just practice for smaller areas. So I'm going to make sure the tip is ready to go. There we go. So you can see how fast I'm going. The iron's hot, so you don't need to, but once I get to this point, I want to stop, feed more solder out, and I'm going to hold it here at the base. It's a little easier to control, but I don't want to hold it too close. So I'm just going to keep going down, and you can practice going on the second row. And, remember to clean the tip. All right. And so you can see here, if this happens, you can practice trying to bridge these two. It's actually kind of hard to bridge them, but if you do put too much solder down, come on, bridge.
There we go. So if this happens, see how those two are connected? You can try to make that happen. It's actually a little hard, but you know, go ahead and try to bridge two. There we go. And all you have to do is go in here and swipe a few times and clean off in between, and see how those ones are now opened up. Now I got those ones opened up. And if you ever have solder on your board, you don't want it there, is solder braid. And you can see this end has already been used a little bit. It's got solder on it. This is used to pick up solder where you don't want it. So you can also practice putting this down over an area that has solder. So like, let's say I don't want that solder there. I just lay this on and make sure that I hold it back a little bit because it is copper, so it does conduct heat. And that's it. So now I'm gonna just go ahead and add some wires to the ends. So I'm just gonna finish these ones off. And if you have solder, you know, down, I took that extra off. You can still add more. For good measure. All right, so what we want is we want it to be shiny. We don't want it to be like chalky looking. And then these two pads, these are just to show you that you can't add any solder to this area. It's just, it's got like a coating on it. So solder will not attach to this. You can try, not gonna happen, but it will happen over here. I'm gonna use if you have a pair of wire strippers like this part cuts, these parts strip. These are just plier tips. I'm gonna use this part to cut. Then I'm going to put it in the right gauge. This looks like it's 20 gauge. Put it in there like that, and then strip it off. So now I've got my wire ready. I'm just gonna bend this, and I'm gonna attach. And so we've already got solder down here. All you have to do is heat these up and put this back on. So, and I'm gonna pick up my iron. I'm not even adding any more solder. I'm just reheating this little blob. And you can see it goes right in there.
Do that the whole way down the board so that you get the hang of it.
So now we're gonna add the resistors to our board. And they come on this sheet. And we've got our capacitors down here. We're just gonna stick with resistors to start with. And it's pretty simple because everything is labeled. R2, R3, R5. There's two options for R4 and R6. So you'll notice R4 and R6. You can switch these ones out. This one says 22K, 56K. So let's start with the 22. So these two will still be on our card when we're done, and later you can desolder these two and put these higher value resistors in place. So I'm just going to go ahead and start just with R1. R1 is 470 ohm. It's this one right here. Just going to take it off the card, straighten the legs out a little bit. And this is yellow, purple, gray. And all I have to do is thread those straight through. And there we have it. So I bend them out so that they kind of are at an angle. And now I'm gonna solder right there and right there. Gonna heat up this area first. Feed the solder in until it flows. Heat it up, feed it in. And if that happens, just retry. Clean off the tip of your iron if you need to. Heat it up, feed it in. There we go. And then when you're done, you just clip. And that's it. So then you just work your way down. I'll do R3 since it's up at the top. I'm gonna find where R3 is. R3. Pop it in. And again, your resistor values, you know, your resistors are, they do not have polarity. But if you want to keep it so that you can read the value, that's up to you. See how I'm bending them so that it doesn't fall off, because I want it flush with the board. So that's how I bend it. Make sure my iron is ready to go. I'm going to heat it up. Feed it right in there. Heat it up. So you're just going to do that for all of these until all your resistors are in. So just pretend that I've soldered all my resistors in place. I want to talk about capacitors before we move on. And so the capacitors are going to be labeled C, 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 C. These are your LEDs, and these are your transistors. So transistors are Q, Q, LEDs are labeled. We're going to stick with our C's, which are on this card. So these ones are easy. They are the same value, 0.02 microfarad, and these do not have polarity. So let's do these ones first. And they are this little ones that look like almond shapes. So the same value, doesn't matter which direction. And you just want to make sure the legs are straight. And then I like to hold my board like this to make sure it's ready to go. I'm going to just put them both in because I'll be ready to do both. Bam. All right. And you can lay them flat. All right. Then I'm going to clip. Clip, clip, clip. Now, for our electrolytic capacitors, we've got 3 10 microfarad and 1 100. I'm going to do this one first because it's the only one that's different. And that one is C6, and that's up here. 100. And just want to make sure that I've got my positive and my negative. This is my negative side. This is my positive side. I'm going to pop that in. And then there it is. All right, now it's a little difficult to solder this because my board's going to be, you know, wonky. I am just going to go ahead and pop one of these ones in. Separate the legs so that they fit in a little bit better. And I'm going to put in this one. Long is positive, short is negative. And then I'm going to flip my board over. Now it's a little more stable. All right. And then next we'll do these last two, which are going to go here and here. And they're the same values, so it doesn't matter where you put them, which one you use. So that's it for the capacitors. So this is your little IC here. And you want to, if this happens, if your legs like that are bent, you just want to use the plier tip to straighten them out. They're really delicate. I want to put them back in place. Here we go. So that's our IC, and there's a little chip at the top, a little half moon. That indicates that this is pin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And so that's why it has a 1 and that little dot. This is going to sit right in here, and you might have to just help it. And you want to push it so that it's flat. And then this is where this practice is going to come in handy, because we want to get all those legs, but we don't want any of them touching. This is our potentiometer, which is our volume control. And this is just going to go right in like that. And again, flip it over. And so when we go to solder this, you know, you'll solder all those three. These two are not going to be soldered to. Solder here, and then your LEDs live over here. And we know the flat side is negative. That's the flat side. There it is. That goes right in there. Take that off. This one goes right in there, and then I'm going to make sure that they are, in fact, as close to the board as possible. And then you'll solder and clip those. And then these are your transistors. So these are the ones that go over here, and they've got 3 legs. You're going to need to separate them and pull this middle one up and do that. And then they will fit nicely right where they're supposed to. You're just going to have to work them down gently so that when you're done, you'll have something like this. And you know, you want to make sure that these are as flush as they can be with the board. You can always try to like heat them up a little bit. Heat the solder up and like push them down a little bit more to straighten them out. But that's it. So this is what the IC will look like when you're done. For strain relief, you're going to feed them through this hole and then back down. So I want my positive here and my negative there. And then flip it over, solder. So that's how you would do the power supply. For our speaker, we need to solder to these two pads with a length of this blue wire. And that's the same method where you're gonna feed it up through the back and then down into those and solder there. So that's what this looks like. So I fed those wires up through, poked them through here, soldered there, and then I soldered my wires to the back. And then you'll have your 9-volt battery, and you'll notice that what I did is I added a switch in, an on and off switch, and I also you can replace the 22K with 56K resistor here, or you can experiment and add other components, like this is a like variable resistors. This is a photocell, so depending on the light value, it will change.